Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And today we've got one that is really like if you had to see into the back of the mind of the very people you want to convince of something, what does that look like? For those, I don't know, Sarah and Katie, if you're comfortable with that, we'll get into it. But for those who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. We tackle your dilemmas about work. And we've had Sarah and Katie who know each other on together before. Sarah is a partner at an investment firm. She's the COO at Glynn Capital. Katie is a longtime legal leader, but also a board member in companies, and she's now the chief legal officer at Brex. And so the question that we're trying to get at today, and so last time we were talking about, something around rules and policies, because you both have roles in holding rules for the organizations that you run. And so oftentimes the question people have is they're like, I'd like to change something. I think our policy on blank is stupid or needs to evolve or something like that. And then they're often coming to people like you and hearing the reasons why it can't work or whatever it is. And so the question is, if I'm an individual and I'm trying to create some change within my organization, how do I go about doing that? And would love any and all input. So thank you.
So I would start with the fact that, as a legal and compliance operator, I'm often thinking about how I can affect change as somebody who works in the risk space. And the advice I generally give to folks more junior than me is that you first have to remember you're not the most important person in the room. I think a lot of people waltz into a tech company and think that they're working for, a compliance conglomerate with a small venture-backed business attached to it. And that is not, in fact, the way the world works. If you want to be the most important person in the room, I've generally told lawyers you got to go work for a law firm. And you can affect change in a much more impactful way if you start from that foundation in these types of roles. On the other hand, if you're trying to convince me, if you're trying to affect change and you want to go through the brick wall of the compliance officer to get there, the first and most important thing you need to do is understand what the constraints are and to understand what was animating regulators when they were designing those constraints so that you can, construct the best argument. None of this is earth shattering, but a lot of folks skip that.
Well, no, I think that the reason why it's a helpful reminder, it's like nobody's going to listen to this and be like, whoa, but the dynamic that I think comes up, especially for talent, is, and Sarah, I'd love to hear your views on this too, is frequently in many organizations, a person who gets recruited gets told, like, we want you. We want your ideas. And I've had this where I've hired people before and I'm like, yeah, I want all your ideas. And then they propose a dumb idea to me. And I'm like, that's dumb because X. And then they like wilt and run away. And they're like, oh, I guess they don't want my ideas. And I think it's this paradox of trusting in your reason for what you're proposing and approaching others with a sense of their curiosity and their interests and their needs. And only by merging those two things can you make change. I don't know. But Sarah, would love to hear any thoughts, because I'm sure people, investors are often like, but do we really need to check the know your customer stuff or whatever it is,
Yeah. So I'll answer that philosophically in a second. But first, I want to share a hack in dealing with risk people. So a pitfall that people often stumble into for reasons that are very natural is that they will come to someone like Katie or me, and the first justification that they offer for their idea is everybody does it.
Oh, yeah.
This is a well-studied thing, right? It's this idea of social proof is something that people often
it doesn't work at Bloomberg where they don't care. They're like, everybody fails.
But it's super if you're in a seat where you get told this a lot, one thing you realize is it's rarely true. So one of those things that immediately will set off alarm bells. And even if it is true, it's rarely the whole picture, because risk has to be assessed in the context of an
or sometimes just the other company is an idiot, and
right. Sure. You just haven't seen the end of the story yet.
This is how Theranos does it.
Yeah.
This is how WeWork does it.
Yeah. So what I would tell people to do, and this gets more into the philosophy of it, is they'll have the opportunity that they're seeing. But if they can spend some time kind of thinking through what Katie just said of understanding, especially for a regulated entity like she and I both work at, understanding the reasons for the regulations and what, some of the high priority areas might be, for example, to the SEC, we communicate that stuff. And so even though they're not steeped in it all day, but coming in with an understanding of it, seeking advice. So kind of positioning it as a partnership, I think can be really effective. One thing Katie, I believe, said in the last session, which was about saying no, is that another another pitfall is like feeling like the person's not telling you the whole story. So just say the good, the bad, and the ugly. That builds a lot more credibility with somebody
Yeah.
at risk
Well,
role.
what are examples? I mean, if I can just ask, of cases where you were involved as either the approver of a change or the initiator, where it did work? Like and maybe while you think of that, I'll just say this whole issue of merging the understanding of another and what they need and want with our own ideas is a lot of the challenge. And what I've often found is people get too attached to their particular solution for it.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I have a thing I'm trying to fix. Let me just come to you. I just had this actually with an HR person at a company where they had some legal consideration. I had some other consideration I needed to talk about. And I was like, here's what I'm trying to solve for. I'm open to solving for it many different ways. But and by the way, I found that can happen both for the speaker, as they can be attached to the idea, and for the listener, they can be too attached to the idea. I'm on a board where there was some question about what to disclose to the board about something. And I proposed we talk about it as a board, but really I just wanted every board member to know, and everybody became attached. Like, let's not have a whole board conversation about it for a bunch of reasons. Like, okay, fine. I don't care. I just want the board members to know. So
no, right. You're totally right that sometimes folks will come to me with a very myopic sense of what the problem is and a very concrete sense of what they think the solution is.
Yes, well put.
And I can help you and devise the most creative solution possible if you just explain what you're trying to do. I literally am an expert in finding the tiny little hole to get through the path you want to get to. And if you insist on some other path, we'll waste a lot of time. If you're just honest, we can move a lot faster.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So just coming to them and being like, here's what I'm trying to solve. Any examples of something that worked that can...
It's funny, Sarah and I are rapidly running through all the things that we wish we could say, but we in fact...
Yeah, I know,
I'm sure. That's how I feel too. Obviously, I obscured the details of the examples that I gave.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is how I think you come up in the tech world, is really learning how to work with really smart folks who don't necessarily know how to talk to you. So one thing that I have gotten very good at is just taking a step back with folks and saying, time out. Thank you for your solution. I appreciate that. But what is it that
you're coaching them basically?
Yeah. And I'm grateful to hear your ideas, but let's just take 3 steps back first.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely love that reminder. And I mean, I've seen cases where, we have had a thing with some policy at Bloomberg that was related to disclosures that we had to raise. And one of the things we try to bring to the conversation is value, meaning we did outside research and just showed up with like, not here's what other people do, but like, here's something we've seen about this situation, which seems credible to us and is some primary data, not I will
say, Roy, if you do your own independent, like statutory research, the lawyers will talk about you in their Slack channel and make fun of you a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a timing and dosage thing, because what you don't want to do is be the patient who shows up at the doctor and is like, well, WebMD says you should be prescribing blank. But what you can do is show up and say, but I saw this thing where 3 people shared they had the following experience.
Exactly.
And I don't know what to make of it. So like everything, it's not unambiguously good. It's good with timing and dosage in the right places.
100%.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would like to offer a hack for the risk professional as well in dealing with these conversations.
By all means.
This was just a very basic thing that I had an executive coach and that she told me to do that's quite effective, is anytime someone comes to you with one of these ideas, even if in your head you're already like playing out like why it's not going to work, is just you always have to ask 3 questions of them. So you need to ask 3 questions, that get to like their motivation, like what Katie was talking about, what they're trying to accomplish, whatever else you want to ask about. And even if you end up in the same place, it feels a lot fairer to the person that you're dealing with. So I would offer that.
Well, thank you for that. I've got to wrap because my most important coworker is here, my daughter, Misha, and I got to get the pizza out of the oven. So, she's making change. Thank you both for doing this. I'll just say, it's not advice because we don't know your specific situation. You got to decide for yourself. Past episodes we've done at thisisnotadvice.work, and you are both welcome back individually or together anytime, because the perspective you have is a rare and really valuable one. So I really just appreciate it. Thank you both.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
To be continued. Bye.